The early sun had just crested the horizon, spilling gentle amber light across the tranquil roadside diner. Wisps of vapor drifted upward from steaming coffee mugs. The deep growl of motorcycle engines saturated the clean morning air, while the mingled scents of gasoline, frying bacon, and worn leather surrounded the Hells Angels riders who had pulled over for their morning meal. Their appearance suggested danger, the sort of men who prompted others to avoid eye contact and change direction. Yet behind those patched vests lay untold histories that no stranger had ever bothered to inquire about. Their shared laughter bounced off the gleaming chrome of their parked bikes until a shrill, frantic scream tore through the moment. Every head turned. A small child wearing a crimson dress came sprinting across the asphalt lot, her small boots occasionally skidding on the frigid surface, her disheveled light brown hair streaming behind her. Tears and grime marked her cheeks, and terror fractured her voice. "Please," she wailed, extending her small arm with one finger aimed back toward the highway. "They're hurting my mama. Please, somebody help her." The assembled group went still. Her sobbing carried such primal anguish that even the rumbling motors seemed to quiet. A few truckers standing by the fuel pumps glanced over, yet nobody stirred except for a single man. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in people who still step up when the world turns away, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4 because what happened next will restore your faith in humanity. The individual who came forward was Mason Cole, a powerfully built biker in his late 30s, his leather jacket adorned with the crimson and ivory insignia of the Hells Angels. His life had exposed him to plenty, brutal confrontations, acts of treachery, bloodshed, but never a child in such a state. He lowered himself onto one knee, gently holding her quaking hands steady. "Where's your mama?" he inquired quietly, though his tone retained that rough, graveled quality. The small girl struggled to form words through her weeping, but she gestured once more down the two-lane highway toward a grouping of weathered trailers partially concealed by foliage. "They're beating her," she choked out. "Please help her." Without hesitation, Mason pushed himself upright, his expression setting into determined resolve. "Tank rider, with me," he commanded, signaling to a pair of his brothers. The trio mounted their Harleys, motors thundering to life, rubber shrieking as they launched down the roadway. Clouds of dirt and wind whirled around the diner grounds, leaving everyone behind in shocked stillness. The trembling little girl was ushered inside by another biker, who draped his leather jacket around her shoulders to ward off the cold. She settled near the glass, eyes unblinking, tracking the crimson taillights as they vanished into the distance. The highway remained hushed for nearly 5 minutes. Then, distantly, the sounds of turmoil drifted backward, furious yelling, a woman's anguished cry, and the thunder of engines slicing through brutality. Mason and his companions had located the trailer. Within its walls, what they witnessed seared itself into their minds permanently. A man, intoxicated and enraged, had trapped a woman against the interior wall, his knuckles already stained with blood, his speech thick with drunken fury. The tiny, fractured window allowed a narrow beam of morning light to fall across the terrorized woman's face, which bore bruises and swelling. Before he could deliver another blow, the heavy sound of boots struck the wooden floor. Mason seized the man's wrist mid-swing and wrenched it forcefully, compelling him to release the bottle he'd been gripping. It exploded into shards on the ground. The accompanying bikers subdued him with ease. No words, just action. Mason pivoted toward the woman, his demeanor immediately gentling. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, his voice shaking with restrained fury. She gave a faint nod, fresh tears coursing down her face. Beyond the walls, the wail of police sirens began to resonate faintly from afar. Some neighbor must have placed the call. When the officers arrived, the bikers made no attempt to flee. They remained in the yard, composed, palms visible, the small girl pressed against Mason's leg. The woman, whose name was Carla, moved forward to clarify the situation. The man was her former boyfriend, recently freed from incarceration, who had hunted her down that very morning. When the police escorted him away in restraints, Mason quietly guided the little girl, Hannah, back toward his motorcycle. "You did good, kid," he murmured gently. "You were brave." They returned to the diner together. Hannah perched on his lap, gripping a helmet comically oversized for her tiny head as the morning sun now climbed completely above the tree line. When they pulled in, a modest gathering had formed, truck drivers, passing travelers, townspeople, all waiting nervously to learn the outcome. When they witnessed Mason carrying the uninjured little girl, with her mother limping slowly behind them, battered but breathing, all conversation ceased. The atmosphere seemed to hold its breath for an instant, as though nobody dared disturb the sacred moment. Carla, her words unsteady, expressed gratitude to the bikers repeatedly. "I didn't think anyone would come," she breathed. Mason met her gaze and offered simply, "She made sure we did." He inclined his head toward Hannah, whose face still showed the flush of recent tears but now held the slightest trace of peace. The diner's proprietor emerged carrying blankets and fresh coffee, extending them without fanfare. One after another, the Hell's Angels stripped off their jackets and wrapped them around the mother and daughter, a display so unforeseen that even the police officers, still hovering by their vehicles, averted their eyes in understated reverence. The emblem on Mason's vest reflected the light as he crouched down to address Hannah. "You take care of your mama now, all right," he said. "You're her little guardian angel." The child nodded, her tiny fingers clutching the fabric of his sleeve. Word of the incident traveled quickly. By midday, nearly half the community had learned the account of the small girl who sought help from the bikers and how the Hell's Angels responded without pause. Unfamiliar faces appeared at the diner solely to clasp their hands, to express appreciation for intervening when others stood paralyzed. Mason was not one for lengthy speeches, but when questioned about their motivation, he stated plainly, "You don't ignore a cry like that. Doesn't matter what patch you wear, some things are just human." Throughout the following weeks, Carla and Hannah began reconstructing their existence. The surrounding community contributed generously. Residents donated furnishings, food supplies, even a modest apartment within town limits. And each Sunday, a contingent of motorcyclists could be observed stationed outside, monitoring their welfare, delivering provisions, occasionally simply occupying a diner booth with steaming coffee while a child's laughter rang out around them. Several months afterward, when the spring sunshine reappeared and the winter chill had retreated, Hannah created an illustration in wax crayon, a line of motorcycles, a small girl dressed in red, and a man kneeling to assist her. She presented it to Mason one morning, rushing toward him outside the diner entrance. "This is us," she announced with pride. Mason studied the artwork for an extended moment before creasing it with care and sliding it into his vest. "That's going with me wherever I ride," he declared. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4 because sometimes the toughest hearts hide the deepest kindness. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were one of those bikers?